Okay, what I'm going to be doing in today's video is I'm going to be upgrading this tire. So this is a 1994 Nuwa brand trailer, probably very similar to something you would get at Harbor Freight or similar to the Snow Bear lines, but being a 94, this one's pretty old. This trailer came with an 8-inch wheel. I upgraded same day to a 12-inch wheel, and as a result, you'll see this fender flops around a bit. When I set the trailer up, for use, I have a set of bolts that I use to secure it in place. Now, these 12-inch wheels on this style of rim, where it's not bolts, like the bolts don't come out, but instead they go into the hub. These are getting really hard to find. And so when I came across this deal at Princess Auto, where I got this whole assembly for $36 Canadian, I thought, you know what, it would really be good if I could just take this whole thing and upgrade this. And so one option I had, since I couldn't find rims, was just to move the tire. But I thought, you know what, given the age and just generally speaking, the fact that I've got a nice new rim, I thought let's swap out the hub. So in this, so what we're going to be doing today is installing this. It's C.E. Smith brand hub, 13210, and it's designed to fit on a 1-inch axle. And when you're trying to figure out whether or not something's going to fit your particular axle, my recommendation is take off the hub and get the bearings out, get the front and the rear bearing out. And as long as the bearings on your new hub are the same as the existing one, then you've got at least the right fit for the axle. Now, one point that I know is a bit of contention is that you'll see on this original wheel that the pilot, which is the hole in the middle of the tire, is exactly the same as the protruding part on the hub or axle, depending on how you look at it. So with these newer wheels, you never get that. I have not been able to find an adapter, and I've not been able to find wheels that have the same sort of small pilot, which again is why I'm kind of wanting to get away from this, because I also want to buy a spare tire, and I've been looking everywhere for a rim and I just can't find it. So so with that being said, that's a bit of context, and I think there's a lot of other arguments to why you might, you could look at the cost of this project, which is, probably $80–90 in tires, $100 for each hub. You start to get into the territory of, do you just replace the whole trailer so that you don't, so that you get a new everything that all fits together? And I sat on the fence for that for a long time, but I just don't see myself actually doing that last step of buying a new trailer. This one, despite its appearance, has served me very well. So let's get on with it. So step one is you loosen the bolts. If I can figure out which size it is, there we go. Keep the trailer on the ground for this so that the friction with the ground will keep everything from spinning. I haven't pre-prepared anything for this, so these are tight. And since I've stored the trailer indoors, these are the original tires from 1994. And remarkably, they show no signs of of wear, but let's face it, tires that old, you're going to be getting some dry rot on the inside for sure. And you don't want these things giving out, because inevitably it will be at the worst time when you've got the heaviest load. I just use this trailer, you know, usually for fairly light duty purposes, moving bits of furniture. The fact that it folds up is just awesome. And for those of you who have a trailer this old, you might also be finding that these wheels, which bear the whole weight of the trailer when it's standing up, they tend to dry out and fall apart with time as well. Now I know some people like to go at this with a screwdriver, and I may end up doing that as well. It's a bit of a cold day today actually, and I'm not sure if that's going to make things a little bit harder to get apart, but I have to reuse this dust cap, so smashing it to pieces is not an option. It has to be able to fit in there, so I would rather do a bit of scratching up on the surface than do any damage that would prevent it from making a tight seal. Okay, now I do try and keep these cotter pins. So of this whole process, I could see this being slightly time consuming, because I do like to try and get these things out in one piece. So let's see if that's going to happen today. There we go. It's coming. Okay. Now, there's two pieces that you're going to need with the new kit, with the new hub. The first piece is this big nut here. It's called a castle nut, and I actually greased these bearings not too long ago. Bit of a shame since I'm replacing it, but the new bearings have that grease fitting, which is going to be really great, so that you don't have to take the whole thing apart to grease the bearings. And instead you can just use that fitting. I'm a little bit old school on that stuff. It's going to be a bit of an adjustment because I'm so used to, you know, getting them nice and clean. So you need that castle nut, and you need this washer. There it is. Okay, so yeah, keep track of those things. Because the new kit, for I don't really know why, but it doesn't come with those pieces, so it's a little too bad. You have this, you know, all this beautiful new stuff, and then you're throwing on this ugly, dirty bolt, and you can just slide that off. So when I mentioned earlier about getting the numbers off the bearings, that's the one bearing there. And you can just, here, I'll show you what it looks like. Looks like that. So there's a number on there. If you clean it off, you can find that number. And on this particular hub, the exact same bearing is on this side. So you can see I've got a straight axle here. There are some axles that are, you know, bigger or smaller, one, you know, bigger at this end and that end. And in those cases, you'll have a different size bearing on the inside than the outside. And that's really important when you're shopping around for your new hub. Okay. The one thing I did do in advance was open this box. Because it's remarkably difficult. Inside, you'll see that there's this red pin. And so it clips on. So when you get the box, you'll see a red pin on one side. And I don't have, this one just broke off as I was pulling on it. Kind of looks like that. And so you'll see it sitting there. So the first one I had, I was able to just like kind of yank it out. And then this one, it's still sort of stuck in there. But I guess it just makes sure that the thing stays sealed. So when you get it, no mistakes to anything. All right. So here's the hub assembly. The bearing is there, and it's kind of sticking out a little bit. And then you've got the rear bearing there. Now, on the back, you'll see this this grease fitting. So you can use your grease gun to just inject more grease in there whenever, you know, whatever service schedule you're running on. But be careful because, you know, as this goes in, it doesn't take much before this whole area gets really, really greasy, and you'll see that when I push it onto the hub. And it's really important not to forget that that washer is not already in here. And so if you put this on, and you see how all that grease is getting pushed out, and then you slide those washers in so that they seat, and then you don't want to lose your grease, right? So you're stuffing all that back in there. And then what can happen is people start throwing on that castle nut, and then you'll find that you get all the way in and you can't tighten it up. It's because you've hit the ends of the threads. So that washer, long story short, important. All right. And you tighten up the castle nut. All right. And then this is always that little fidgety bit where everyone wonders how tight to do it up. Fair question. I always wonder the same thing myself. But there's two criteria. The first criteria is at the end of the day, you got to be able to get this pin in the hole. So on what I found with this one, based on just how this thing is that this spindle comes out a long, long way before I get full contact. Now, I just do it and I sort of tighten it up, and then I just start backing it off until I feel that hole. it's a little bit off center because the trailer's on an axle stand, so it's not quite level. Okay, so I've backed it off by 1, and what I look for is it shouldn't be too tight, but sorry, that's a motion detector light. Nope. Okay. But generally, I will back it off 1. Obviously, you don't want a lot of movement. But I like just a tiniest bit. And I really mean that, just the tiniest bit. If it's too tight, the bearings will heat up because there's resistance. And because this is a brand new hub, I think there's a possibility that as this works in a little bit, I might want to increase that just a little bit. Okay, so there we go. These are out of the way, and I want to make sure that nothing impedes the dust cap. Okay, so that's on there. Happy. Now, I don't have an answer for this, but you'll see that these dust caps have a different depth. Because of the depth of that nut, I'm gonna hit this thing, so I'm gonna just use my existing dust cap. A little bit of grease creeping out the side. And then on goes the wheel. Now, a couple things you're going to notice. The pilot has space around it. I know that there's a lot of different opinions out there, but what I've read is this is fine. But you have to really make sure that the nuts are torqued to the right specification. Okay, so one other thing I want you to be really careful of is there's all sorts of, I think there's like a paint or, you know, I think these things are made, you know, pretty fast. And you really want to be careful that these things go on without cross threading. And I was installing another one of these and on the other side of the trailer. And one of the bolts was really a fight. And of course you get this far into a project and you don't want to, you know, take the whole thing off and take it all back. I mean, obviously you probably should, but what I did, and I'm running into it again here. Okay, so this thing, it's going on okay. Okay, it's not cross-threaded. but I'm hitting resistance right there. So let's see if there's, I'm really hoping that this last one doesn't give me the same grief. Okay. So you're this far into your project and you start getting some resistance on one of the bolts. All I can tell you is proceed with caution and be gentle. I have found that they will thread, and you just got to kind of work it back and forth a little bit. So I know it's not cross-threaded, I'm on there fine, but I'm just going to work it slowly on. If I encounter too much resistance, I'll stop and see if I need to clean something or file something down. Okay, and it seems like we're all right. So when you're tightening, you always go across the wheel, right? So here, 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 and just work it up until it's tight, and that will help you get it on nice and level. Now, I'm just doing this to get them kind of up to hand tight while it's on the jack. Obviously, to tighten it up the rest of the way, I'm going to need it on the ground. And I'm going to be using a proper torque wrench and bringing it up to, I'm going to double check this, but what I've found online is that there's not a lot of information on 12-inch wheels and the correct torque, but what I have seen is 50 to 75 foot-pounds. And so I'm going to kind of go a little bit with my gut on this. I'm going to set the thing to probably first 60 pounds, see how it all feels. And then if I can, I might take it right up to 75, because since these things are not sitting right there, there's paint on the rim, which may, sort of, come away a little bit. It's so important that these things are tight, because if you start to get any sort of play around these bolts, you're in for a bit of a time. So that's my video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If it was helpful, please give it a thumbs up, and we'll talk soon.